All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today we're exploring something truly profound, a concept that really sits at the very bedrock of how we experience the world, both inside our own heads and out there in society. We're looking at the Quranic concept of Amn. Think of it as the architecture of security and faith. Now, right off the bat, we're not just talking about locked doors or safe borders here. We're talking about a massive, holistic, 360-degree vision of what it actually means for human heart and honestly an entire civilization to be truly secure. So let's get into it. Picture this for a second. Can you live in an absolute, impenetrable fortress, but still be completely terrified? Seriously, think about it. You could have the highest walls, the most advanced alarm systems, literally unlimited resources at your fingertips. And yet, physically safe as you are, you could still be tossing and turning all night with anxiety. This perfectly illustrates the massive gap between mere physical safety and genuine psychological security. The physical barriers, sure, they might keep danger out, but they do absolutely nothing to cultivate peace on the inside. And that brings us to the core of what we're talking about today, Amn. The Quranic concept of Amn is so much richer and honestly way more expansive than our standard English translation of security. It doesn't just mean you aren't in immediate danger. It encompasses safety, peace, profound trust, deep reassurance, reliability, and an ultimate freedom from fear. It's this beautiful state of being where your external environment and your internal landscape are just perfectly aligned in tranquility. So think of it this way. If we consider salam to be the ultimate state of peace, well, Amn is the foundational soil that peace actually grows in. You just cannot have peace without the total absence of fear and the active, living presence of trust. Amn is literally the condition that makes peace possible in the first place. Okay, for anyone who loves language, this part is absolutely fascinating. Let's look microscopically at the Arabic root here. We have the letters Aleph, Mim, Nun, or AMN. From this single linguistic root, we get an entire family of incredible words. We get Amn, which is security. We get Amin, someone who trusts. We get Īmān, which translates to faith. We get Amānah, meaning a sacred trust or responsibility. And we get Mu'min, a believer. Just look at the DNA of those words. The language itself is telling us that faith, trust, and security are totally inseparable. They're siblings born from the exact same source. And this linguistic connection, it builds into a pretty life-changing realization. The Qur'an is suggesting that genuine faith, or Īmān, isn't just some passive belief. It's not just checking a box and saying, yeah, sure, I believe this. It is fundamentally an active, living trust. And when you actively trust, the natural byproduct of that action is inner security. It's like a machine. Faith is the engine, trust is the fuel, and security is the destination you arrive at. So where do we even get this kind of unshakable security? Well, it begins with the divine. In chapter 59, verse 23, the Qur'an actually refers to Allah as al-Mu'min, the grantor of security. What this tells us is that ultimate, rock-solid security isn't something you can just manufacture with politics, and you certainly can't enforce it with the military. True security is a divine gift. It begins with God, who confirms truth, fulfills promises, and provides that ultimate safe refuge. You'll actually see this constant tug of war throughout the Quranic text between two opposing forces, KHAWF, which is fear, and Amn, which is security. Think about how fear feels. It's paralyzing, right? It restricts us, it isolates us, it breaks down our social bonds. But Amn is stabilizing. It opens us up, it allows us to connect with one another, and it gives us the solid foundation we need to actually live our lives, rather than just surviving day to day. We see this dynamic beautifully promised in chapter 24, verse 55. The text says, and I'll just paraphrase here, that he will surely replace their fear with security. But here's the critical thing we have to understand. A healthy society doesn't just swap out fear for security by building a police state. You don't cure societal fear with a bigger stick. You cure it through justice. You cure it through collective righteousness and by rigorously upholding human dignity. Because Amn is so incredibly vital, the Qur'an comes down fiercely on anything that destroys it. We're talking about oppression, betrayal, corruption, injustice, theft, murder, and the deliberate spreading of fear among innocent people. These aren't just arbitrary moral wrongs. They are violently disruptive to the very fabric of society because they shatter trust. And guys, when trust is shattered, security goes right down the drain with it. Right, so the true opposite of Amān isn't merely being in physical danger. The opposite of Amān is the complete, systematic collapse of trust. It's that creeping anxiety, the sting of betrayal, profound insecurity, social instability, and widespread distrust. Honestly, when neighbors can no longer look each other in the eye and trust one another, Aman has already disappeared, even if there isn't a single weapon in sight. Let's ground this in everyday reality for a second. Look at how the Qur'an pairs our most fundamental human needs. In chapter 106, it reminds the people of Makkah of their blessings, specifically mentioning the one who fed them against hunger and granted them security from fear. Look at that pairing: food and security, nourishment for the physical body, and peace for the mind. And this points to a really brilliant sociological truth. A hungry society is one that is fundamentally struggling just to survive. But a fearful society, even if they have plenty of food, they simply cannot flourish. Things like art, culture, innovation, real community, none of those things can blossom in the shadow of terror. True civilization absolutely depends on both physical nourishment and that psychological freedom from fear. You actually see this exact logic perfectly captured in the prayer of the Prophet Ibrahim, or Abraham. When he was praying for the sacred city of Makkah, his very first request was, "My Lord, make this city secure." He deliberately prayed for security before he even mentioned prosperity or provision for the people living there. He knew the order of operations. The huge takeaway from Ibrahim's wisdom here is that without security, prosperity literally cannot last. You can have all the wealth, all the amazing resources, and all the gold in the entire world, but if that foundational layer of societal security is missing, your wealth is meaningless. It's just going to be hoarded, stolen, or destroyed. Īmān is the vessel that actually holds prosperity. Okay, zooming back in from the societal level to the deeply personal one, how do you or I actually attain this state? Chapter 6, verse 82 offers this stunning formula. It says that those who believe and do not mix their faith with wrongdoing, for them there is security and they are rightly guided. This perfectly bridges the gap between our everyday moral choices and our psychological state. Doing the right thing without corruption is literally the key that unlocks inner security. It's like a step-by-step formula for spiritual evolution. Step 1 is Īmān. You establish that active, living trust in Allah. That trust naturally produces step 2, Amn, a profound, totally unshakable inner security. And it's only when you are operating from that place of secure peace, rather than frantic anxiety or fear, that you reach step 3, Huda, which is true guidance. You can only clearly walk the straight path when your heart is actually secure. Which loops us right back to our opening thought. True Īmān is fundamentally psychological. Think about it. Someone with very little material wealth, living in highly vulnerable conditions, can experience profound, life-altering security simply because their trust in the divine is absolute. Meanwhile, someone else, locked away in a gilded fortress, can remain utterly terrified of losing the stuff they have. When you map this all out, it's just incredible. It reveals this organic, compounding chain reaction of virtues. Check out this flow. It starts with ihsan, which is excellence. That leads to rahmah, mercy. Mercy allows for adl, justice. Justice creates salam, peace. Peace provides the environment for aman, security. And then that security reaches right back around and deepens Īmān, faith. It's a breathtaking ecosystem of the human spirit. Just to break that down real quick, excellence, going above and beyond, inspires the people around us. That inspiration softens hearts through mercy. When hearts are soft, they naturally start seeking justice and fairness for everyone. Fairness restores broken relationships, which creates peace. And finally, in that peaceful environment, people can live without fear, creating a society of absolute security. Every single virtue acts as a catalyst for the next one. So, if we had to distill everything we've talked about in this explainer into one final, concise summary, it would be this. Ameen is the Qur'anic state of security that is born from an intimate trust in Allah, actively upheld by justice and society, protected through human mercy, and ultimately expressed as a total freedom from fear, for yourself and for literally everyone around you. It's a pretty amazing vision for a perfect world. Which leaves us with one really big question for you to think about. In a modern world that so often feels like it's entirely defined by anxiety, instability, and a severe deficit of trust, how can you, in your own life, begin to cultivate this ultimate inner security? How can you turn your faith into active trust and actually become a source of amor for the people in your life? Think on that. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.